There is a wood that sinks in water, not slowly, not partially. It drops to the bottom of a river like a stone. It scores 2620 on the Yanka hardness scale, the hardest native wood on the North American continent. Twice the hardness of white oak. A nail driven into it bends before the wood yields. Fence posts made from it in 1880 were pulled from Texas soil last year. Still solid, still holding wire. 140 years in direct contact with moisture, insects, bacteria, and freeze-thaw cycles. The wood does not decay. The USDA Silvix Manual of North America classifies it as the most decay-resistant timber on the continent. Immune to termites, no chemical treatment, no preservative, no factory. The fencing industry generates $9.8 billion per year, selling you products that rot in 15. This would last 10 times longer. And they made sure you never learned its name. A nation of warriors controls a territory stretching across what is now Arkansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, and eastern Texas. The Osage. They are among the tallest people in North America, averaging over 6 feet, in an era when the European average is 5'5". They dominate their region militarily for 3 centuries, and their weapon of choice is not steel. It is a bow carved from a single stave of golden wood cut from a tree that grows only within their territory. The wood bends without breaking. It stores energy like a coiled spring. It holds its shape across decades of use without cracking or deforming. The finished weapon is so precise, so lethal, and so coveted that its documented trade price in early 19th century Arkansas is a horse and a blanket. That is not folklore. Explorer John Bradbury recorded it himself. A single bow equaled the value of a war horse. The tree had other names across other nations. Cherokee used it, Comanche sought it, French explorers who encountered it called it bois d'arc, bowwood. The anglicized version became bowdark in Texas, hedge apple in Kansas, horse apple in Missouri. The Latin name is Maclura pomifera. The common name you may have heard once and forgotten is Osage orange. Now understand why settlers planted 60 million acres of it. When Europeans moved west past the Mississippi, they had no fences. The Great Plains had no stone for walls, no timber dense enough to hold livestock. The United States government recommended one solution: plant Osage orange. Space the seedlings 12 inches apart in a single row, let them grow 3 to 5 years. Then bend and weave the young trunks into a living wall so dense that no animal on the continent could penetrate it. The farmers had a phrase for a properly grown Osage hedge: horse high, bull strong, hog tight. It stopped cattle, it stopped horses, it stopped hogs rooting beneath, it stopped deer from leaping over. The thorns alone grew 3 inches long and hard as nails. A mature hedge required no wire, no posts, no staples, no maintenance. It repaired itself. It grew thicker every year. It cost nothing but seed and patience. In the spring of 1855, 9,000 miles of Osage orange hedgerows were planted across the Midwest in a single season. By 1865, Kansas farmers had begun what would become 39,400 miles of single-row hedge. Missouri planted thousands more. Illinois and Iowa followed. By the 1870s, Osage orange was the fence of America. Not a product, not an industry, a tree. Now, here is what made the wood itself something that engineers in the 21st century still struggle to explain. Janka hardness, 20 pounds force. White oak scores 1360. Hard maple scores 1450. Shagbark hickory scores 1820. Osage orange exceeds them all. You cannot drive a nail into it without a pilot hole. A chainsaw dulls on it in minutes. Sawmill blades designed for oak require replacement after cutting a single Osage log. Specific gravity, 0.86. Water is 1.0. This means a freshly cut branch sinks, not because it is waterlogged, because it is structurally denser than the liquid itself. There are fewer than 5 North American hardwoods that can make this claim. Dried weight, 54 pounds per cubic foot. Pressure-treated southern yellow pine, the standard lumber sold at every hardware store in America for fence construction, weighs 35. Osage orange is 50% heavier by volume. That density creates something no chemical preservative can replicate. The cell walls are so tightly packed that moisture cannot penetrate. Fungi cannot colonize. Bacteria cannot establish. The heartwood is filled with structures called tyluses that physically block the vessels through which decay organisms travel. The same mechanism that makes white oak watertight enough for bourbon barrels exists in Osage orange at far greater density. Combined with naturally occurring flavonoid compounds that give the heartwood its signature golden glow, the wood is toxic to every wood-eating insect and resistant to every fungal species documented in North American forestry research. The USDA Forest Products Laboratory tested 56 round Osage orange posts over 23 years of direct ground contact. Not one failed. Field observations across Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas confirm posts exceeding 100 years of continuous use. The USDA Silvix Manual classifies the species as Class 1 decay resistance, the highest rating. Immune to subterranean termites without chemical treatment. No chromated copper arsenate, no alkaline copper quaternary, no arsenic, no chromium. No copper leaching into soil or groundwater. The wood protects itself. BTU output per cord, 32.9 million. The highest of any North American firewood species ever measured. Shagbark hickory, the gold standard of firewood, produces 27.7 million. White oak produces 24.6 million. Osage orange exceeds the next best species by more than 5 million BTU. Pioneers called it prairie coal. Railroad crews burned it when no mineral coal was available. A single cord of Osage orange produces as much heat as 1.5 cords of oak. And there is one more thing the industry never mentions. The fruit of this tree, those softball-sized green spheres that drop every October, contains a compound called 2,3,4,5-tetrahydroxy-stilbane. The USDA Forest Service tested it and confirmed 94% repellency against cockroaches at concentrations comparable to commercial pyrethrins. The same compound repels ants, box elderbugs, crickets, and mosquitoes. A tree that builds permanent fences, produces the hottest firewood on the continent, resists all decay without chemicals, and repels insects from its own fruit. You cannot buy this combination at any store in America, because you were never supposed to know it existed. Now the villain arrives. 1874, DeKalb, Illinois. A farmer named Joseph Glidden files patent number 157-124, improvement in wire fences. 2 twisted strands of steel with sharpened barbs, spaced evenly along the length. Barbed wire. The patent generates $1 million in royalties before it expires in 1892. Glidden becomes one of the wealthiest men in the state. His investors become wealthier still. The product is simple, cheap to manufacture, infinitely scalable, and most importantly, it rusts. Within 20 years of that patent, 60 million acres of living Osage orange hedgerows are ripped from the American landscape, torn from the earth by the root, burned in piles, replaced with twisted steel that corrodes in 10 years, snaps in ice storms, sags under snow load, and requires staples, posts, and replacement every single decade. The living fence that repaired itself, that grew stronger with age, that required no purchase after planting, was systematically destroyed and replaced by a product that fails by design. One product created a permanent customer. The other was a tree. Today, the United States fencing market is valued at $9.81 billion, projected to reach $14.9 billion by 2033, growing at 5.4% annually. Pressure-treated southern yellow pine dominates. Average lifespan of a treated fence post, 10 to 20 years depending on climate and soil contact. Average cost of full residential fence installation, $3,000 to $6,000. Average replacement cycle every 15 years. That is 4 to 6 complete fence purchases over a homeowner's lifetime. $20,000. Minimum spent on a product that rots on schedule. An Osage orange fence post lasts 50 to 140 years. It requires no treatment, no sealer, no stain, no maintenance. It outlasts the house it surrounds. It outlasts the owner who planted it. It outlasts the grandchildren. And it costs nothing if you grow it yourself from seed. Here is how. In October, Osage orange trees drop large green fruit the size of a softball, weighing 1 to 2 pounds each. Inside that wrinkled skin are 200 to 400 seeds embedded in sticky pulp. Collect fallen fruit, place them in a bucket of water for 3 to 5 days until the pulp softens. Mash with your hands. Rinse seeds through a screen. Dry on newspaper for 24 hours. You now have hundreds of viable seeds. Cost, 0, cold stratification. Place seeds in a sealed bag with damp sand and refrigerate at 35 to 40 degrees for 60 to 90 days. This mimics natural winter dormancy and breaks the seed coat. Without stratification, germination rates drop below 20%. With it, expect 60 to 80%. Plant in early spring after last frost. Sow 3/8 of an inch deep in well-drained soil. Water lightly. Germination occurs in 14 to 21 days. Seedlings grow aggressively, 3 to 6 feet in the first season. For a living fence, transplant seedlings 12 inches apart in a single row. Let them grow 3 to 5 years. In year 3, begin bending and weaving flexible young trunks through each other horizontally. By year 5, the hedge forms an impenetrable barrier. It stops livestock, deer, trespassers, and wind. It requires only annual side trimming to maintain width. It never needs replacement. For fence posts, allow select trees to grow 10 to 15 years until trunks reach 4 to 6 inches in diameter. Cut in winter when sap is low. Debark immediately. Air dry under cover for 6 months. The resulting post will outlast anything sold at any hardware store in the country. Set it in the ground. Forget it. Your great-grandchildren will still see it standing. For firewood, cut any branch thicker than 3 inches, split with a maul and wedge. Season 12 months, burn at 32.9 million BTU per cord. Expect less ash, longer burn time, superior coaling, and heat output that no other species on the continent can match. You will not find Osage orange posts at Home Depot. You will not find seedlings at Lowe's. You will not find the wood in any big box lumber aisle in America. Not because the tree is rare. It grows in 39 states. It lines roadsides from Texas to Massachusetts. It thrives in the worst soil on any property: drainage ditches, eroded hillsides, compacted clay, abandoned fence rows. It is everywhere. But no corporation can profit from a product that never needs replacing. No retailer can build a supply chain around a material that eliminates the customer. No chemical company can sell preservative for a wood that preserves itself. The fencing industry does not want you to know that permanent fence posts grow on trees. The treated lumber industry does not want you to know that the chemicals they pressure into cheap pine leach, arsenic, chromium, and copper into your soil and groundwater. They phased out CCA in 2003, not because it was safe, because it was indefensible. Modern replacements still leach copper at measurable rates. The firewood market does not want you to know that one species outperforms every other by 5 million BTU per cord and grows on land no one else wants. The pesticide industry does not want you to know that a fruit falling from this tree in October repels insects without a single synthetic molecule. They ripped out 60 million acres of it. They replaced it with steel that rusts and wood that rots. They built a $9.8 billion industry on the assumption that you would never learn the name of the tree that made their entire product category unnecessary. The posts are still standing in Texas, 140 years old and holding wire. The hedgerows are still growing in Kansas, where no one bothered to pull the last ones out. The fruit is still falling every October, 200 seeds per sphere, waiting for someone who understands what the Osage Nation knew 5 centuries ago, what Kansas farmers knew in 1855, what the fencing industry prays you never discover. A tree that lasts forever does not need an industry. It needs a person with a seed, a patch of dirt, and the willingness to wait 5 years for what the fencing aisle sells you every 15 for the rest of your life. The wood still sinks, still resists, still endures, still waits. You were never meant to learn its name. Now you know it. If this vault opens something for you, subscribe and hit the bell. Every like and every share preserves what they tried to erase. The next vault opens soon.